So, today we are going to read chapter 5 in our story, One Crazy Summer. Now, before we read chapter 5, I want to review chapter 4 a little bit. So, in chapter 4, we know that Delphine, Vanetta, and Fern, they finally arrived at Cecile's house and they are surprised by what they see. Her house is made of a green stucco material. She has a palm tree in the front of her yard. Her house is very different than the others that are on her street. We know that Cecile is not very helpful, and Delphine has to take responsibility once again over her sisters. Cecile won't help them unpack their things, put their bags away, so Delphine is kind of in charge yet again. And then we also hear Cecile muttering, and remember that word muttering just means whispering under her breath, kind of quietly talking, not to anybody specifically, but almost like she's talking to herself. And we hear her saying things like, I didn't want you. I didn't ask for you. I should have gone down to Mexico to get rid of you when I had the chance. And these things were all very hurtful. The girls, their feelings, we can guess that their feelings were hurt, but these things weren't unexpected. We kind of expected that because Cecile so far has not shown that she is a very good mother to these girls. So that's what happened in chapter 4, and today we are going to read chapter 5 called Mean Lady Ming. Okay. We stood as one, looking up at her, me in the front, Vanetta and Fern at my sides. She was tall and broad-shouldered, where Pa was just tall. As hungry as I was, was that they made you dance with a boy in the 6th grade, that I would never look right dancing with a boy, and for that I had Cecile to thank. So right here, when she said, I would never look right dancing with a boy, and for that I had Cecile to thank, she's describing how she is tall like her mother. She's implying that she looks funny dancing with a boy because she's taller than most boys, and she thinks that doesn't look right, that she's so tall dancing with another boy. She thinks she should be shorter. So that's all she's saying right there. I spoke first. We're hungry. As usual, my sisters' voices followed on top of mine. Vanetta. What's for supper? Then Fern. Hungry, hungry. She rubbed her belly. We made a picture. Us looking up at her and her looking down at us. In the animal kingdom, the mother bird brings back all she's gathered for the day and drops it into the open mouths of each bird squawking to be fed. Cecile looked at us like it didn't occur to her that we would be hungry and she'd have to do what mothers do, feed their young. I'm no big ma in the kitchen, but I would have opened a can of beans and fried up some franks. Now, franks, those are just hot dogs. I can bake a chicken and boil potatoes. I would have never let my long gone daughters travel nearly 3,000 miles without turning on the stove. Now, we see here that they've gone all day, really, without eating a real meal. So Delphine, once again, is taking the motherly role, right, over her sisters. She's looking out for her sisters, and this shows that she's a very strong 11-year-old, right? She's only 11. You have to remember that. She said, What you want from me? Supper, I answered. It's past 8 o'clock. We haven't had real food since breakfast. With Big Ma and Papa. I kept going. I glanced at my wrist, 9 hours and 12 minutes ago. Whoops. Vanetta next. Airline food don't count. Fern last. Surely don't. She was still looking down at us as if we'd thrown a monkey wrench into her quiet, Tuesday evening. Then she spoke. Where's the mother your father gave you? So when she says throwing a monkey wrench into her quiet Tuesday evening, that just means she's saying that um it's disrupting her evening. Like Cecile is acting as if the girls, when they're asking her for dinner, it's ruining her whole night. When she's her mother, that's her responsibility, right? She should be on top of this. This shouldn't bother her so much. So Cecile says, where's the mother your father gave you? I crossed my arms. There was no way she was getting our money. That money's for Disneyland, I told her. To go on all the rides and meet Tinkerbell. This was the first time we hear Cecile laugh, and she laughed like the crazy mother she was turning out to be. Haha, is Tinkerbell going to feed you? She was still laughing. We didn't think she was funny. We said nothing, rather than talk back and get slapped. Look, she said, if you want to eat, hand over the money. I stared her down, something I'd never try with Big Ma. Cecile didn't seem to care. She said, fine, I got plenty of air sandwiches. Here, go on back to your room, open your mouths, and catch one. So here Cecile is saying that if Delphine does not give her the money that Pa gave her for the trip, they won't be eating a real meal, right? They could eat all the air sandwiches they want, but if they want real food, Cecile wants the money, right? Cecile is saying, give me all of the money or you can go eat air. That's what she's saying here, which is not a very motherly thing to say. The stare down ended right there. I unlaced my right tennis shoe, wriggled my foot out, and removed the mound of tens and twenties Pa had given me. Cecile didn't care that the money had been baking under my foot since we'd left Brooklyn. She took the money, unfolded, and counted the bills, then stuffed them in her pants pocket, except for a $10 bill, which she held out to me. So I'm going to go back right here where it says the stare down ended right there. Let's see. I don't think Delphine wanted to let Cecile win. But I'm thinking she maybe backed down for her sisters. She wanted to make sure that they were fed and taken care of, and I think that she was a little bit scared, right? She was scared that if she did not give Cecile the money, that they wouldn't be fed, they wouldn't be given dinner. So I think she kind of stood up and was like, okay, you know what, I'll give you the money because I want to make sure me and my sisters are able to at least eat dinner. We don't want to starve. Okay, so I don't think she really wanted to lose the stare down, but I think it's what she had to do. There she is going and being responsible again over her sisters, taking the motherly role. Go around the corner to Ming's. Order a large shrimp lo mein. She counted our heads as if she didn't know how many of us she'd had. 4 egg rolls and a big bottle of Pepsi. Vanetta and Fern squealed for the shrimp and Pepsi, forgetting that this was wrong. Our mother should have cooked real food for us. At the very least, baked a chicken, made franks and beans. Fruit punch, I said. Big Ma don't allow us to have strong drinks. Cecile let out a single whoop of a laugh. Vanetta and Fern were too excited about having takeout to see that our mother was crazy. I said, we have to call Pa, let him know we arrived. They chimed in, safe and sound. On the ground. Cecile said, phone's next to Ming's. You mean you don't have a phone? Vanetta asked. Cecile said, I don't have no one to call, and I don't want no one calling me. Whether Cecile had a phone and was not my main worry. We have to go out after 8 to call Pa and get the food. Aren't you coming with us? So right here, she's asking, aren't you coming with us? This shows us the concern that Delphine has, right? They normally wouldn't be leaving the house alone this late at night. So she is definitely concerned about the choices that Cecile, her mother, are making, allowing them to have soda, which normally they wouldn't be allowed to have. Now she's sending them out alone at night to get food, which normally they wouldn't be allowed to go out alone at night. So she's a little bit concerned with those choices. Ming's is a couple blocks down Magnolia around the corner. She pointed the direction. Phone booth's right there. When we were barely out the door, she added, "And tell Ming to give you 4 plates, 4 forks, 4 napkins, and 4 paper cups. No sense dirtying dishes. And you're not coming inside my kitchen." We all looked at one another and thought the same thing. Crazy. I led the way in the direction Cecile pointed, down the walk, past the slumping palm tree, and made a right turn. Vanetta and Fern, as usual, nipped the heels of my tennis shoes. That just means Vanetta and Fern were really close behind, right? Have you ever had somebody step on the back of your shoe? That's what she's saying right here. It wasn't dark at all, but it wasn't high daylight either. Kids of all ages still ran around, playing in yards, riding bikes on the street. I bet kids ran around and played out here all year long, and not only in the summer. Remember, guys, California all year round. Out in San Francisco where they are, right? That's where they got dropped off. They're in Oakland, California. Year round it's pretty warm. In like the 60s, 70s, 80s, it's very warm out in California. All year, even their winters. That's why she's saying, I bet kids ran around and played out here all year long and not only in the summer. We usually went to the summer camp at the Y or drove down to Alabama in Papa's Wildcat. Now, like she mentioned Papa's Wildcat earlier in one of the earlier chapters, that is just the car. So I looked up a picture of a 1960s Wildcat. It looks something like this. This is one example of it. So when she's saying they drove down in his Wildcat, picture this car, all 5 of them fitting in this car, driving down to Alabama. We came upon some kids playing freeze tag. They jumped from lively wiggle worms to frozen statues, just as we neared their yard. We felt the smirks of the gaping statues on us. Vanetta smiled, welcoming their interest in us. She was scouting out new friends to be with for the next 28 days. I let her lag a step or two behind to wink and smile at them. You can't stop Vanetta from chasing after her friends. So in this paragraph, we see Vanetta acting a different way than the other girls. So I wonder if we'll see more of that in the future, right? Vanetta's acting a little bit differently. And we already know that Vanetta is very showy, almost a little bit overdramatic, right? She likes to be liked. So we see that here in this paragraph. I kept walking, Fern sticking close to me. Vanetta skipped until she caught up. One thing was for sure, these blocks might have been long like the blocks on Herkimer Street, but we were far from Brooklyn. I didn't know where any of these streets led, but I walked down Magnolia like I knew where I was going. I couldn't help but notice that not one yard had a palm tree. Not one. Or stucco. Not one house was painted that crazy green color. I was thinking this when behind us crept a rumbling against concrete, like a barrel rolling, the rolling broken by the cracks in the sidewalk. I turned. A voice yelled, "Gangway!" We tried to jump aside, but the 3 of us jumping all together only got us so far. A boy on top of a wooden board, this flying T with tricycle wheels in the back, rumbled by and managed to clip me good. "Hey, watch out!" I called after him, shaking my fist. He only stopped at the corner to pick up his flying T, carry it across the street, and lay it back down on the sidewalk. Sorry, he yelled without turning around. A flying T. I wonder if that's like a scooter or something like a scooter, right? Then he gave it a running push and jumped on it. Eventually, lying stomach down, his arms outstretched as he held on to both ends of the T. What was that? Vanetta asked. Some stupid boy, I said. Come on, y'all. I had to pull Vanetta's chin away from the direction of the boy on the flying T. She kept looking, even after he was long gone. Ming's was where Cecile said it was, around the corner and a couple of blocks down. There was a big sign, Ming's, and underneath it a red neon characters that looked like fighting men waving swords. The telephone booth was also where Cecile said it would be, right next to Ming's. I planned on calling Pa before getting the food, but the booth was already occupied by a light-skinned guy with a big, floppy afro. He was turned sideways, but I could see his profile, his beakish nose, the way he pushed his head this way and that suspiciously while he talked. Now right here, let's keep this boy, this light-skinned guy with a big floppy afro, let's keep him in our brain. Right? Let's keep him in our mind for later on, because the author may have brought him up for a reason. So let's just keep him in the back of our minds while we keep reading, okay? We stood with our arms folded, waiting for him to finish. He looked like a fugitive from justice. I could spot one when I saw one. I love a good crime story, especially the FBI crime shows come on late, and I sneak to catch whatever Big Ma falls asleep watching. That's how this guy looked. Have you guys ever snuck downstairs or in your living room to try to watch TV late at night? That's what she's explaining right here. That's how this guy looked. Like he was calling his ma to see if the coast was clear to come home without the mob or the coppers on his tail. He saw us standing with our arms folded and turned his back to us. I got it. He had a lot of dimes and planned to use each one. So when they're using a phone booth, they have to put dimes or money in the booth to keep talking on the phone. So that's what she's saying here, that he had lots of dimes and planned to use each one. So it just means he's going to be talking for a while. We went inside Ming's. We were barely in the restaurant, which wasn't a restaurant, just a counter with a kitchen on the far side and two small tables with benches on our side. The Chinese lady behind the counter said, "No free egg rolls. No more free egg rolls." She waved her hands like, "Shoo, stray cat." Like, go away. I didn't know how to answer. I didn't ask for any free egg rolls. But we were the only ones inside Ming's, and she was staring straight at me. Vanetta said, "We don't want free egg rolls." Fern piped in, "We want shrimp lo mein and Pepsi." Vanetta said, "And 4 plates, 4 forks, 4 napkins, and 4 cups. And 4 egg rolls." Vanetta, "All for money, not for free." Finally, I said, "It's takeout to go." I uncurled the $10 bill to show her. Usually I am Johnny on the spot, speaking up for my sisters and me. But this time I went blank for no reason I could think of. It was nice to have Vanetta and Fern jump right in. So right up here, how Vanetta and Fern kind of took over the conversation, this is a change, right? Delphine is usually one to take charge and talk and speak up for her sisters. And right here, we see Vanetta and Fern talking for Delphine. So that's a nice little change that we see going on. The lady shouted in Chinese to the back of the kitchen. She sounded even meaner than when she'd said, "No free egg rolls." I decided, just like Cecile was crazy, the Chinese lady was mean. Mean Lady Ming. And that's where we get our title of this chapter, right? This Chinese lady was being mean. She nodded to us and said, "Okay, sit." We sat down and waited. Me and Lady Ming kept talking. Everybody poor, everybody hungry. I give free egg roll. Feel sorry. Then everyone come for free egg roll. She muttered on like Cecile did and looked mean and tired like Big Ma looks on washboard days. So right here we have the word muttered again. So just remember she's like almost whispering to herself, talking to herself. And she said she muttered on like Cecile did and looked mean and tired like Big Ma looks on washboard days. A washboard is just an older way to how they used to wash clothes. So it's a big board and they put clothes on it to wash the clothes by hand. So she's saying, and it is exhausting, right? So she's saying mean and tired like Big Ma looks on washboard days. So the days when Big Ma would do the laundry, she would get very tired. That's what she's saying here. While I was sitting with my sisters, I made up my mind about Oakland. There was nothing and no one in all of Oakland to like. I would get on a plane and fly back to New York if Big Ma showed up wanting her grandbabies. I wouldn't even tell Cecile, thanks for the visit. So right now we see Delphine, she's kind of thinking about her trip so far to and what it's like in Oakland, and it sounds like she doesn't really like it, right? It doesn't sound very fun. So, let's just talk about what happened in chapter 5. In chapter 5, remember Mean Lady Ming. So we started off with Delphine giving Cecile all of the money that Pa gave her for this trip. This shows us that Cecile didn't really prepare for the girls to come and visit. And if she did, she didn't do a very good job because these 3 girls who needed dinner, they haven't eaten since breakfast. And Cecile was not prepared to feed them. We also see how Cecile sends them on their own to Ming's to pick up their dinner, which shows us that Cecile doesn't really realize that these girls are children and they should not be going out alone late at night. While waiting for their food, Delphine is thinking about her experiences so far, like with Mean Lady Ming and Cecile, and it kind of sounds like she wishes that she was back home, right? She sounds like she would be having way more fun if she was back home and didn't come to Oakland. So that's where we're leaving off with chapter 5.